Miami Township Board of Trustees. I would entertain a motion to adopt the minutes from November 4th.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
No, I
I
don't.
would note that I made an addition based on Mr. Hollister's suggestion, noting that the November 17th Historical Society presentation was continued, in case anyone reads it after and thinks they missed something.
But that's in brackets. Thank you.
For those who don't know, it's good. The new date hasn't been set.
No.
And it's Historical Society is going to tell the history of our fire department, or somebody, presentation of history.
We're focusing on volunteer fire department.
Date not yet set.
Please call the roll. No, he can vote while he walks.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the minutes of November 4th, 2024, as noted. Mr. Mutcher.
Yes.
Ms. Moyer.
Yes.
Mr. Hollister.
Yes.
Minutes are adopted.
I would entertain a motion to approve payment of bills totaling $40,349.97. From the general fund, $250. From cemetery, $1,714.48. From fire, $35,606.56. From the road fund, $2,778.93.
I make a motion to pay our bills.
Second.
Discussion?
I have none.
Please call the roll.
It's been moved and seconded to approve payment of bills in the amount of $40,349.97 as enumerated. Ms. Moyer.
Yes.
Mr. Mutcher.
Yes.
Mr. Hollister.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
The key thing in our correspondence seems to be communication from who's the guy from the Farm Bureau?
Dale
Arnold. And we'll likely be discussing that if our zoning administrator is here, but we can review it under new business later, just for reporting. Any additions to the agenda that people have to suggest?
I think my main interest was to hear the trustees talk about their reaction to the Dale Arnold presentation.
Well, we will have that.
Under, whenever it happens.
Either zoning or under new business. Fire department report. Our chief is not here, but he has submitted a brief report. Activity since our last meeting, there were 16 EMS runs, that is ambulance runs, 14 fire runs, 1 fire inspection. We were asked to provide mutual aid for 1 ambulance run and 1 fire run, and we received mutual aid on 1 fire run. As was referred to in last meeting's report, new ambulance cot, sort of magic lifting rolling cot, was installed.
That's awesome.
And that's it. Any other comments, questions regarding fire report?
I would certainly be interested in hearing what the 14 fire runs were.
Did it say 14th fire?
It does.
That's possible, he made it.
It's more than we had all year, I think.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, I thought he told me today it was like half the amount that it usually is for his run, so I'm sure that's a
He
typo.
may have made a typo, but we will bring it up at our next meeting.
If we remember.
I have
I made
it
it.
marked.
Okay, thank you. 14 fire runs, that seems like we would have heard something. 14 fires in town.
Well, a fire run is often a smoking pot in a
Oh.
kitchen, but still.
Well, it also includes when the engine goes out for an accident or to assist in
Okay.
additional personnel for a EMS call also. It's not
Just fire.
just fire, but still in all.
Anything else for fire and rescue?
No, I don't.
Dan, cemetery report.
Well, since our last meeting, we've had no burials, but we have 2 tomorrow. And let's see what else. Did you get Roger's bid?
No.
It's in a blue envelope.
Oh, it's on the round table in there for them, yep.
He asked me, I told him we'd talk about it, whatever. I'll tell him what you're working on. I don't really have anything else for cemetery. You have anything?
Any other cemetery news?
We have a leaking spigot in the
Oh, yeah, it's
Traditional.
leaking spigot.
traditional Glen Forest East.
So does that mean we're paying for extra gallons?
No,
No, we pump our own.
It's going right back down. into
That's
the
right.
aquifer.
That's right, we're just recycling it.
it's not bad, but it's weak.
The pine forest is continuing to be prepared for potential walkway markings in the next couple of weeks. I don't have an exact date, but
We did formally retain that company.
and Dan and Brand have been working to get that ready because there's lots of little holes that have to be filled and
More stuff to clear.
more clearing and
We'll take care of it.
a lot of little things. But it's slow. So that's the only thing I had.
Road report.
Okay, since I'm here, I'm gonna put a spreader on the truck to spread snow this week, which will be ready. And my other question about the Hensley bill, did you see that?
That went out.
I did it? Okay, part of that, Clifton owes us, we can bill Clifton for their share. They
Oh,
were supposed to bill them direct, but evidently they billed us.
I'm not hearing you. Can you say that again about the Clifton?
Clifton had some work done.
Clifton
through
Village.
Hensley's, Clifton Village, and they were supposed to bill Clifton directly, but they billed us.
so you mean part of the large Hensley bill should have been paid by them? That we
Yeah,
paid
it
all
says
of
at
it?
Clifton, it says on there it's like $1,800. That,
Oh, just a small portion. Oh,
right.
okay.
So if you paid it, then we can bill Clifton and get our. get the
Oh,
money back.
okay.
Okay?
Since you bring up Clifton, I think it might be of interest to remind people that we do a lot of the road work, street work for the village of Clifton on contract.
In the village, not just around the village.
That's right.
Around the village is ours.
Yeah.
So what's the detail on that?
They had some area chip sealed there by the schoolhouse.
But if we're plowing snow, we get paid
Yeah, we bill them.
$50 an hour or
It's like 65, I think.
65?
That material and equipment. Yeah, we bill them for each, takes about an hour each time, depending on the weather. If it takes longer, we bill them. And any other work we do for them, we bill them.
And the village work is in both counties.
Right.
Interesting interjurisdictional thing.
So the payments come from Village of Clifton? Is that where
When we
haven't seen this
plow
one?
and stuff,
Okay.
yeah, we send them a bill and they pay.
So I might see some of those this
This
winter.
winter,
Get
yeah.
some snow, okay.
Generally, time first of the year.
Right.
We send out the bills?
Yes, we do.
Yeah,
Oh, I have to invoice that.
It'll be one bill. It's like a total up for the year, like what we done last winter, and then now till the end of the year, it'll be one invoice and you bill and they'll pay it.
Oh, okay.
But part of that work is in Clark County? Is that what you said?
Yeah,
Most of within the village.
I understand most of it is village, but I got the impression there was some
It
piece.
doesn't matter what county it's in, because the village, believe it or not, is an incorporated political subdivision. And so it controls itself regardless of where it sits.
Regardless of county.
most of their population is actually in Clark.
So most of their population is not in, township is what I'm just trying to understand the little details I don't need to.
Right.
It's fascinating.
The little things, you know. I have a couple of questions for the road administrator.
Yes.
I looked at roads yesterday. Again, everything looks really nice. Really, really nice. That was a pretty good sized tree that went down on Kyle.
Don't know who cleaned it up, but they did. They didn't do it. They didn't do it. It happened over the weekend, last weekend, evidently.
Who cleaned it up?
I had no idea. Probably electric company. Because it took power line down.
Oh, I did. Oh.
And they opened the road up, so we didn't get called about it or anything.
There are two sets of cones out there. I know one set is on North River, halfway down.
Set of cones on North River.
Yeah.
Haven't seen them. I don't know what, I haven't been out there.
They've been there for a long time. Long time.
Is it by
Joe Stank's corner,
Clear Out? Or
Yeah.
closer to town?
close to town.
That's probably where they done that culvert work when they put that fiber optic or something in there. It's probably left over. They're not ours.
No, they're not? Okay.
And the ones on Kyle are not ours either. I don't know.
That was, I was wondering, you know what those are for? It's just,
Well, evidently when the road was, when the tree was across the road.
oh. Okay. You think we should have Enid take the tree down on Hyde? That's a big tree.
Oh, no, we can let that.
You sure?
Oh, heck yeah. But I got one in Clifton I'm gonna have Enid look at. That walnut, it's hollow. It's gonna come down. Clifton Cemetery. I'll get it.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot left of that, is there?
It's hollow.
Yeah, it is.
No, the one at Hammond is still on our list. So I was hoping to get to it this week, maybe later on. Shouldn't take long. We have some potholes too. You see a couple, there's a few around the one.
Just, you know, a little breakup.
Yeah, we'll run around filming. Didn't take much.
You want me to just go ahead and respond to the county engineer that we will be participating in the collective bid?
You can if you like. We don't know what we're doing yet.
Well,
It
we
gets
don't.
earlier every year.
Yeah, it's January 10th.
We have to
Yeah, I
have
was
it
going to bring
in.
that up. They said something by November 27th, we should tell them which
You have to respond.
Just tell them we're going to.
we're going to. Don't have to name the streets or
Right.
anything. And then by January 10th.
Yeah, they want the,
Who needs to do that? Should I do that or what?
do you know-
Contact the engineer.
it's just one said we're going to do it.
We're in.
You'll do it?
I'll do it.
Then we'll figure
And then
out,
by January 10th.
we'll
Yeah.
figure out what we're going to do.
We'll either do road tour or something. I don't know if I had mentioned this to you, but we may not be able to do much blacktopping next year.
It's all right. We're in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
I don't even know what we.
You're saying that
I'm not
because
sure.
of our balance?
We had a fair amount of money go out with new engines and new lawnmowers and new this and new that. And we had a pretty good amount this year that was done, so,
Yeah, we're in good shape pretty much, I think.
yeah. That's all I have.
Don't want him.
All right. Fiscal officer is here.
Hi.
You've said that formal report would be next month, or?
Just the second Monday, which is this one, is when I give you the finance reports that I get out for you. But I also emailed you all earlier just about ongoing work with Fred, what we're working on. what the goals are for the next few weeks,
And then
months.
we should code things that we want to have.
Yeah, so several things, including what Dan just mentioned, that he left on my desk this morning. Those things are on the round table. So I'll just, since that's not the zoning person's desk anymore, I was just gonna have that be the place for active items for you, and then if you can put them in my top inbox when you've coded them. And that's the first thing I'll look at when I come.
And then I think you worked out, as far as the number that we coded, we have to make sure there's enough in that fund. And
Yes.
you're saying it's our responsibility, and I think you worked out that was right. It's really our responsibility to make sure that,
To do any reappropriating or adding. That's my understanding.
is that what we?
And especially because we're coming to the end of the year, there might need to be more of that. But all the funds are getting a little low. I don't know what other big bills we have coming down the pipe.
That sound reasonable to everyone?
And Fred said that he would, Fred's work is mostly not the fiscal officer, but includes, that he would have a formal report this coming Friday. There's a written report out.
Yeah, there's a couple large ones, like the Skylar for Denny that he just left, like some $30,000+ one, so we need to.
Do you know what Skylar is?
That's the
What we just got, so we haven't paid them yet.
Some of that was grant, but the rest of it is, okay.
Yeah, I think this is the balance.
Take the pig and see what we take that.
AES, did we switch, I got like final bills from AES on 3 of our accounts and then 2 new ones that like, with a slightly different, it's the same locations, Brandon Lane, Clinton Street, and Clifton, but they sent a final bill and now a new one under a slightly different name. Is this,
They changed names all the time.
oh, so that's not something that we did?
No, we didn't do it.
Okay, I was just confused about that. I thought maybe we had to like switch. No, okay.
I'm sorry, what's Brandon Lane?
It's our nightlight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know we had a nightlight.
We have a nightlight.
Okay, so that's just an AES thing. That's not an us thing. Okay. And then thank you, Chris is signing us up for the OTA conference. I think all this in January. I have that on my list, but Chris is going to take care of it. And I also need letterhead, like our official letterhead. We talked about this in
Yeah, I just got to change a couple of names and make some up.
Okay.
I gave you a few copies.
Yeah, and so I didn't know if I need to like, if there's one that I can save on my computer to print it more, like he needs something for an official receipt for a client, Dan does, so anyway, we'll work
Yep.
that out.
Yeah, and send us all the copies, 'cause sometimes I need letterhead, and
Yeah, it's nice to have some official documentation sometimes.
I created my own once.
Okay, all right, that's all I have.
Unless I was mistaken, and I had sent you, I think, a message about it, and Marilyn, you probably closer to this than I am, but aren't we supposed to notify the county auditor when we make an amendment, an amendment to permanent appropriations?
I have no idea, and for the first couple of years I sat here and we did all those amendments for appropriations. I didn't know that anybody.
I think Margaret was supposed to, but I believe she did, send those to them.
Huh.
Because it changes our permanent appropriations, and they're the ones that okayed the permanent appropriations. So now this is a change to them.
Huh.
Do you know how that notification happens? Is it just sending them an email with that updated?
Well, the auditor's gone, so I don't know.
Right, because it's now.
Well, we do have a new auditor.
We also have his right-hand woman, Becca Brewer-Klantz.
Yeah.
That's
I
probably
guess I can
who we
always
should
just
ask.
ask her.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's great. Yeah, I never had any idea that there was a follow-up to that.
Yeah, and there's 2 things that have to happen in UAN, which I did, but it's only when either if funds are added or Does reappropriation matter? It's the,
No.
it's the added funds, because that changes the bottom line. Okay.
So you report it when there's added funds?
Yeah, well, you're not going to subtract them, I mean,
No.
really.
And not reallocate, I mean, because sometimes you reallocate.
No, not the reallocation.
Just the, okay. I'll contact Becca this week.
Well, we don't have Brian here from zoning.
I was just saying, the fund balances are looking a lot better, a lot closer to reality. So we're making progress.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Do we know why Brian hasn't been able to make any of these meetings?
Well, the first one, he made the assumption that who in their right mind starts a public meeting at 5, he became at 7. The second one, he had a conflict, and I thought he intended to be here tonight. So I don't know the answer to that.
Well, I saw him on Friday, but I didn't ask.
I have suggested that he take a look at a potential non-conforming use in our agricultural district.
I saw that.
Did you? Okay.
I saw that you asked him. I didn't see his response.
No, I didn't get one. Of course, that was just Friday.
I still have this thing we owe TARMA. It's some kind of thing we have to hand in every year. It's these are hard questions. How many elected officials, how many part-time, how many...
Well, wait a minute, is this,
Oh, sorry. I'm going rogue.
is that specific to his?
No. I just reminded me that there's stuff out.
Okay, and is that something that needs to be in the meeting, or are we just paperwork we need to
Yeah,
deal with?
it's okay, paperwork we need to deal with. That's a good one. But it seemed like there was one more thing having to do with fiscal officer that we need to turn in by some date. Is there something still on?
Yeah, there's several emails. What's the other thing? An early December date?
I think we got that one done. I'll check. We don't need, you're right, don't need to do this in the meeting.
But since we have anxious public here, perhaps we should take up the question of the solar presentation.
And that is the last item anyway.
Really?
Here, committee reports.
Standing committee is at the end of, oh, you're right.
That would be
This
it.
is the end of the month. Let's go through standing committee reports first. MVRPC.
I went there. Again, everybody's dealing with transportation. It's so well attended. There's so many wonderful people there. Oh, shoot. Something really interesting happens. There's a presenter about affordable living in the whole Miami Valley. And the part that interested me was how zoning sometimes affects the affordability of a community. So that's the only relevant. They gave a lot of stats about where in the Miami Valley the most affordable houses in it were, and where were places that weren't affordable, and it seemed entirely obvious. But the zoning aspect of it was interesting. And then there was a wonderful presentation. I wish I'd brought my notes, what they call it, the air something something. And what they really mean is future drone traffic. And it was this guy giving this report of what's coming, and it's drones delivering packages, drones giving grandma a ride to her appointment, and all kinds of things. And he spoke as if it were coming very soon. And they also cautioned that local zoning, I'll believe when I see it, will be involved in pattern where you're allowed to fly through, and maybe the times of day you're allowed to fly through, and things like that. So that was interesting. But I was kind of floored by the idea of a lot of drones flying around, and it was really interesting. So that's what happened at the Miami Valley Regional Planning. And there's ongoing, aging in place things, and of course, transportation, road work, grants, and Yellow Springs, Ryan Hausch has been really busy securing grants for Yellow Springs Village, and when you see a lot of these new crosswalks and signs and widened sidewalks or something, he's really taking advantage of that. I don't think we have anything equivalent that we're not going to start doing, pathways out in the township, and I guess this is relevant. Miami Valley Regional Planning came and we did a walking audit on Friday, and that went really well. We split up into 4 groups and took our checklists and gathered data of places that weren't quite even, or problem areas, or good things, and really went quite a wide swath around the village. And that's simply gathering data for future grants. Like what are the big problem points and where do we want to focus next? So, and
Where are those big problem points?
well, all the groups came back after walking for an hour and discussed them and handed in our data. So they're collecting it.
There were people there from the Yellow Springs News, so I'm assuming there'll be
Yeah,
a
maybe that will
story.
be.
I mean, I started out there and I got 2 phone calls that hijacked me.
And then what they didn't address, and they didn't have time to address, is, and this isn't really village information, but I mean townships as much as villages, if this apartment's going in Antioch, what that traffic is what that walking and car traffic is going to look like and how that might change. It's not super easy walking around that big those roads coming into, and I'm thinking of Davis and Livermore, and how you get there, you're always watching the other driver, wondering who gets to go first. And the sidewalks on that end are narrow and lumpy. And
Does anybody have any updates on that project from you yet? Is it me?
I haven't heard
I
of it.
haven't heard, it would be something from Village Planning Commission.
Was the sale finalized, do you know?
Well, for the original, the first part, the student union building, that was finalized, where they proposed 120 apartments. But Fell's building in Kettering had not been, to my
That was
knowledge.
finalized. Cool. That's all I have.
Greene County Regional Planning and Coordinating Commission.
Oh, we spent time on a few subdivisions, one in Bath Township, one in Beaver Creek Township. Final plan in Beaver Creek Township for a last addition into last additional section into a subdivision. You brought up the MVRPC point about the zoning as opposed to affordable housing, and Beaver Creek Township, the representative from Beaver Creek Township is very much involved in that because he's a developer, or was. I never really thought about it, but there's apparently a lot of pushback to Beaver Creek Township Zoning Commission to keep high density, I don't know if it's affordable, but high density building done in Beaver Creek Township, because the residents who own the big McMansions don't want their property values diminished by lots of additional.
Well, they want to pay higher taxes.
They want to keep what they have the way it is. This is the old NIMBY, of course. But they're very vocal, apparently. And they have stopped more than a few attempts by the zoning commission to rezone certain areas within Beaver Creek Township. It's getting that built up is, I guess, the bottom line. Now they're infilling just as full as they can get.
But those infills are single families.
No, they're
Not apartments.
condominiums. Because there's not that much space to put single families anymore. So they're going the other direction. Shades of things to come.
Well, moving on. Clifton Union Cemetery not had a board meeting. We do have a new clerk, at least on an interim basis. Linda Parsons, who's a board member, has taken on the role that Margaret Silliman was serving.
I have a question about that, in that as the clerk of the Clifton Union Cemetery, we had covered her under our risk management, our TARMA, our bonding. So I don't know if we would also cover Linda Parsons, or is that their problem?
We will look into that.
Okay. Why did we cover that? So why did we cover it? Did we cover it just because Margaret was our elected official, or because?
Well, both Miami Township of Greene County and Greene Township of Clark County are owners of the cemetery, so it's still a governmental activity. I could imagine Otarma would not hurt.
Did Linda start as interim, or did that change? Was she always interim?
Linda? For clerk,
Yes.
interim.
It always was interim?
It's only been a month.
Are you searching for a permanent?
We have talked to our fiscal officer, but she's got her plate full right now. And Greene Township's fiscal officer also is not interested.
Fiscal officer revolt.
There is compensation, but it's token. Yellow Springs Development Corporation.
I didn't go to the last meeting. There's something afoot that I need to be briefed on that I haven't been, something having to do with that new position. I won't speak too soon, I don't know, it's probably be folded into the village. We might be, to be continued. There's some.
Well, the village is hiring a
Have I missed the
development.
news? Have I missed the news? What do you know?
I unlocked the door to let them in.
Okay, so is it public yet, Don, before you say it?
And Brian said that was going to be
Okay,
announced.
so I do believe we're getting our 10,000 back.
Well, we haven't
Did you pay them?
paid it.
Okay, I was going to say.
But we appropriated it,
Okay.
and so we did a permanent appropriations for that. So, spill the beans, so.
Greene County Township Association. I went to the last meeting.
Was the food good?
Food was good, and it was a tour of the Xenia Library. It was hosted by the county library and the county foundation. I'm impressed by the remodeling of the Xenia Library is not finished, but I'm impressed with what they're doing. Much bigger maker space, dramatically bigger maker space, and much more area focused on children, young people, books, and activities. The natural burial.
Natural burial. The only thing I have is that I'm going to be meeting with Brian and walking around, and you guys had approved months ago the idea of continual maintenance. Jerome had asked for 15 hours a month. You had said, that doesn't sound like much, but now that I said Brian, his name is JT.
I was going to say, which Brian are we talking about? We got lots of Brians.
JT and I are going to meet, and he's going to give me suggestions of what he thinks it's going to take to just do the continuous maintenance. And I think that's the way to go, because
And he is
we could,
who you're contracting with?
yeah, we can nip those invasives in the bud.
Figuratively.
And literally. Right. Things like that. And have a trained prairie naturalist observing it over time, I think is great. So I'll come back with a proposal of what that would be.
Did you meet with him to get ideas about, we talked about plantings around the fountain?
Yeah, he said he's been working on that too, so that's a meeting too. Did your architects mention that? Was that the person who said something?
No.
Okay. Okay.
He thinks the scattering garden should be improved, but
Yeah, I think it's a general agreement that it's great. It's a great start when there's something missing.
mhm.
A little sparse and not a little stark and exposed. So, yeah, thank you for reminding me. He's going to show me his ideas on that too.
We're going to turn the fountain off around the 1st of December, as we did last year. Let it rest for a while. It has worked perfectly all year long.
I have a question. Is there any plans for burning that off at all?
Well, I wasn't going to bring it up, but Jennifer Rosengarten, who had asked, there was this thing with Denny when he took over, I think it was overwhelmed and decided they're not doing any more burns. She had asked, he had said they won't do it. She was hoping to reopen the idea. And JT had also asked about burning. He's thinking of getting his own license to burn, but I don't know if our fire department is still willing to burn anything. I would look at it as a loss if we didn't. There's a prairie over by on King Street. There's the TLT prairie. We have this prairie. There's the prairie at Morse Bean, and there's a new prairie at where's that?
Hyde Road.
Hyde Road at Morse Bean, and a new prairie.
Well, no, the other, not down the other end.
Oh.
Hammond, down by Hammond.
And a new one that's going in at Ellis Pond. So it's kind of, we have this niche community that's doing a lot of prairie restoration, and we have a community fire department that could do burns if we could figure out how to do it, but I think we're at a kind of a standstill.
Let's put that on
Maybe we just do it for ourselves, or maybe we don't even do it for ourselves.
at the next meeting. Let's ask Denny again.
The major impediment, of course, is personnel. I mean, now we have 5 people on a shift. It takes more than 5 people to burn a prairie. We're a little shy on volunteers.
Well, let's bring that up at our next meeting when Denny's here. You made some reference to Active Transportation Committee already, but that's on our list of reports.
Yeah, that was the report I gave, the audit, that was, if you...
The street audit.
Yeah, the street audit.
Okay.
Let me just drill down on that one a little bit. Is that something that MVRPC will be putting together and making a final report on, and recommendations and all the rest of that good stuff?
They'll be coming back to us with a report.
Okay, they will.
Yeah, and then I suppose we will prioritize, and they'll look at the size of the grants, the conditions of the grants, and deciding what they will ask for in the next round of grants.
Does the village pay them for that?
I don't know. Are you getting ideas?
No, I just wondered, I guess it just depends on how large the project is, whether they do it for free, although you pay dues, but, as part of the
I don't know. I could ask Brian. do they pay to assist us in the audit, and do they pay us for the report? And do we pay them to assist in the audit and the report, and do we pay them to assist in the grant writing? If they do, if they advise us on that, I don't know. I'll find out.
Now, us is not us.
Us is the village.
Just to back up, if I could, for a second, about this prairie business and burning, there was one question I remember the Chief Powell said, maybe he was interim chief at the time, but Chief Powell was suggesting that there was some information out that these are, it's a questionable practice, at least from his point of view, as to whether it really is. So that piece of information might require a prairie expert to present in that discussion of reopening. And the second thing was, I don't know that there are a lot of prairie burns done elsewhere, but is that if we need more personnel, could that be a mutual aid request planned well ahead, of course, not an emergency, I need somebody today, but 3 months from now, we want to do a so-and-so burn, could we invite the Beaver Creek Township Fire Department personnel to participate in that? And that might be a learning.
I want to hold this for.
I just want to bring these ideas up because they popped up in my head, and you're not going to discuss them today, but that could be background for a discussion later.
Yes, let's add that. We'll make a note.
Yeah, for next time to talk to Denny about it.
Let me just briefly, very briefly add, Fred, that you were talking about that, what you originally brought up. Like many things in life, there are, not everybody agrees one way or the other. I personally gave a tour to one of the preeminent prairie developers in the state of Ohio earlier this year, and it was his opinion that burning is not productive.
Okay. I just thought,
but we've had opposite opinions also. So,
yeah.
Well, I think this needs to be worked out, discussed, but I think it should be when Denny's here. Or at least the next stage of it. But thanks for bringing it up.
I just thought some more fact-finding might inform the discussion.
The next topic is the solar presentation that we had in this room last week.
May I suggest that each trustee give their impression and then open it to
Sure. You want to start?
Mr. Chair, you should start. You're the head, honcho.
Well, I won't be very inspired. It was fairly, a lot of detail, fairly complex, but he focused on what came at what I caught from it is sort of middle range size installations, whereas what we've been talking about the last few years is a proposal that went to the Power Siting Board because it was more than 50 megawatts or roughly 300 acres. And that on-site, just for the particular farmer or the particular household to use, not to be sold to the area grid. Those are already have a set of regulations that if we don't have specifications for solar development, an outline in our regulations, our zoning regulations, then everything is a variance with just no guidelines. Everything would go to Board of Zoning Appeals. And that's where we're at the moment. If someone wants to come in and say, we want to do a 20-acre solar installation, there's no guidelines, at least as I understand it. That's my take.
Well, he started out with something really interesting. And he was talking about how there's change coming where we're not going to be getting our energy. He spoke with great confidence they're not going to get our energy from large centralized places like coal-fired plants and large nuclear. And that there are going to be a multitude of small energy producers, even small nuclear or some natural gas generated, fired natural gas or biofuels, and that we may be seeing, and solar and wind, and we may be seeing a range of things. But that was interesting to me. He seemed fairly confident that all townships and counties are going to be seeing applications to do this. That was interesting to me. I didn't realize about the change was so imminent, I guess. And then
So he emphasized, don't just talk solar.
yeah, don't just talk
What I
solar,
said.
and expect changes, and expect that, and then he gave a few different pieces of legislation. One was House Bill 197, which hasn't, in some email threads, Dave Newhart points out, has not been passed yet, it's still in committee, but that one would give the citing power to the boards of zoning appeals if it passed. And so he kept saying, so what was interesting to me, he gave us this list, and here, you guys should have a document. He emphasized public process. He kept saying, like a room like this, and he had a slide that said, make sure there's public process. A community should get in the room and give their expectations. And he gave us all the paper of what it should include. And I kept pushing him, well, should this be a change in zoning resolution? Should this just be an application within the BZA? Or should the township pass it? And he didn't want to decide that for us. And I'm not sure why he was being coy about that. He didn't want to push, he didn't want to tell us what to do. And then I went home and I think I wrote this in email to you guys. Remember, and Fred, you remember, at the beginning of the process, we were given a sample document from Greene County Regional Planning.
Yeah, Greene County has produced a project, a document that they call a suggestion for the township.
Yeah,
and you have a copy of that.
Yeah, and I have it, and I have an electronic copy if anybody wants it. I was going to bring both today, and when I compared them side by side, I thought, oh, this is the document that he's telling us to produce. That was an example of that document. It had all the pieces.
Yeah, and Cedarville Township has done this through their zoning. In their code of regulations, they have a big, long thing that's somewhat, I mean, I've read both, but I don't remember all the details, but somewhat mirrors what the Greene County has suggested as things to be in a regulation if you decide you want to have a regulation.
Yeah, and so Dale, pretty much the central thesis was, if you don't have this in place, they're going to take advantage of you. They're going to name what they want and challenge you
And pressure.
you. And I also know, and I don't know, I also know that townships, including Cedarville, because they admitted it to me, those can be written to discourage or encourage. I think there's wiggle room to discourage or encourage, and I believe Cedarville wrote theirs to discourage. I don't know what Xenia's does, but when I look at Xenia, what they have about solar in their zoning resolution is it is a conditional use in these districts. And they don't have a word about, I don't believe, I'll have to check again, I don't think they have a word about any of the criteria, and I wonder where that criteria exists for them. Whether they just say it's a conditional use, go to the BZA and get the conditional use application, or maybe they have a special application. So I don't know where in our, first we have to decide, do we all believe that we should do this? And then we have to decide, what do we want it to look like? And then we have to decide, where is it going to lie? Is it going to be all contained in our zoning resolution? Is it all going to, is it going to be referred to in the zoning resolution and be an application of the Board of Zoning? Of course, that legislation hasn't even passed yet, so
Yeah, we'd have to
the
wait
cart
to
is
see.
before the horse,
Right.
but there it is. Chris?
I guess my opinion would pretty much mirror both of yours. I was surprised at the amount of information that he presented us about medium-scale solar. I didn't think there was that much detail that was, that was out there in the world at this
I
point.
was surprised too.
And then specifically about who would, I kind of got lost in the weeds about who would make those decisions, whether the zoning commission would write the regulations, and then BZA, as they do now, I mean, just like everything else, they interpret them and see whether the applicant, is following those for a conditional use, what the conditions are, or do you just forget about the zoning commission if 197 goes through? Don't get me wrong. And the BZA then has their own set of criteria, which they have to produce themselves because no one else is going to produce it, unless somebody else does and they just adopt it. But it sounds like, the authority is given to them, and so they would have, in theory, free range over whatever they wanted to do, whether they just wanted to make a conditional use and like Xenia Township, or make it like Cedarville and have, a whole stack of things.
Yeah, currently, BZA doesn't write anything. They just
Right.
They just
That's what threw me down. was
consider
that this was something new,
variation
giving them the
things.
authority.
And remember, Dale at least emphasized the public process, that the stakeholders should be in the room.
Well,
Yeah,
stakeholders should always be in the room for regulations.
yeah, but who will author it, yeah.
Yeah.
But he also spoke about townships that have no zoning. They have none. So he's talking about an overlay set of ideas. Who's going to do this? He doesn't want to say, I'm going to do it. He doesn't want to say, you're going to do it. He wants to say, you have a township. You organize how your township is going to respond to this. And you already have an organization. You have a zoning commission that could make those rules, but they don't approve the rules. You do. You have a board of zoning appeals that takes people's problems and decides whether they fit what the zoning commission has written and what you have approved. If the zoning commission wrote it and you didn't approve it, it's not a rule in your township. So you already have such an organization and you have some split roles. I mean, that's how I saw it. You're saying who would do it? Well, your zoning commission and your board of zoning appeals depend on your approval for what they're suggesting to you. They're your resource, but you are the authority. In my imagination, I'm sorry, I just felt that it ought to come in that way.
But do they? Does the Board of Zoning Appeals, it's never come up before, do we approve, if they write a set of regulations, do we have to approve them? Do we go through that whole same process as the zoning
That's
commission does?
moot at this point, because at this point, the Board of Zoning Appeals doesn't write anything.
I know, but I'm just thinking that through.
House Bill 197 goes
We have
through,
other applications.
I'd have to read that to
We have
answer the
other
question.
applications that we approved and we produced. Applications with guidelines for variance and
Absolutely. It just sounded like
Yeah.
197 gave the
Yeah,
BZA the
yeah.
authority to.
And I think the legislature doesn't have it all baked out yet. I don't think they've,
Boy, that's a
it's
shock.
half-baked.
Please, I forget your name.
Jane. So the landscape today is going to change when 197 goes through, which Del Arnold was projecting would be in about 18 to 24 months. So when we talk about an existing plan that Xenia has or someplace else has, that may be sufficient for today because community level solar doesn't even really exist as a recognized entity, so there are no formal proposals representing that yet. And so he's saying to start getting the ducks in order prior to the passing of the House Bill 197. House Bill 197 is going to be a strong proponent of community level energy, and which one is this community solar, because it's all about distributing energy equitably and a lot of things like that. But anyway, so the community solar plan isn't needed yet, but we need to be writing one, and it needs to be, I'm just taking this from Dale's presentation as well, but it needs to be very evidence-based and documented because the proposals that we're going to receive are going to be evidence-based and documented proposals for people wanting to come in and develop different forms of energy in our area. And so we have to have a plan that is on a similar playing field with that in order to make a successful argument as to whether we want to have it or do not want to have it. And it'll actually be with House Bill 197 going through, that's going to hold a little bit of water because that's a bill that's going to be passed that is a proponent of these alternate energy sources. So the other thing, and I'm just trying to kind of pick up on what you guys were talking about and what my take is that might be just a little bit different, but also a lot of places don't have a zoning committee. They got the BZA, they got the trustees. If you have a zoning committee, then it is the responsibility of the zoning committee to prepare the plan. I understood that. I'm on the zoning committee as an alternate, but I was listening very astutely to that and have always been kind of paying a little bit of attention to what the role of the zoning committee is and wondering what we do and how we do it. And so this was one of the things I was paying pretty astute attention to. So if you don't have a zoning committee in place, then the proposals come in. They're very well documented. This is after HB 197 passes. And if you don't want it, you turn it over to the BZA because then it becomes an appeal. And then they'll have to deal with it, but we have a zoning committee, and so my understanding is that it is the zoning committee. If you have a zoning committee, it is the responsibility of the zoning committee to work on this plan. And again, sure, whatever Xenia has written to date that says something like, send it to the appeals or something, I don't remember exactly what the wording was, but I don't think that is not going to be sufficient protection from having developers come in and have better documentation as to why we ought to allow different forms of energy. And I'm not for or against at this moment in time until I would see what the proposal is. But if you're evidence-based and you have all of your documentation on all of the different aspects that Dale talked about, and it's extensive, then you would know your own position after looking into the evidence base, because it's going to move beyond maintaining agricultural field. That's not an evidence-based approach to turning down different proposals. But it's like 18 to 24 months down, and we've got attorneys who had stated that these documents are also not necessary at this moment in time. They're not, because House Bill 197 hadn't passed.
Yeah, I think Brian Corey contacted Jennifer Huber a month or so ago, and she reported it's not an issue yet because it hasn't passed.
That's it, yeah, it's in committee, and it appears, you've got to think, I've got to think that Bill Arnold has an idea of what's coming down the pike. He's, unless he's just way out there, I'm basically a mind bird interpreting what he said. And so if he's way out there, well, then I might have heard repeating, crazy stuff, But that's what I heard. I'm just giving you that's what I heard. So.
I thought that between the two groups, I feel like the interest and engagement lies with the members of the board. As personalities, they seemed more engaged and more.
Which board?
The BZA seemed much more enthusiastic about the whole the ideas and I see less interest on the zoning commission to tackle it. So if it has to be done, we could collaborate. It seems like we could collaborate and pool our talents where we have them.
And tomorrow there is a zoning commission meeting.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting what they have to say tomorrow. How would they take it?
Yeah, if it's the zoning commission's responsibility to do it, and we're just appointed. I've never really been in positions where I had responsibilities that I could just say, I don't know. So I'm not really sure how that kind of plays out.
Yeah.
I mean, I would ask them to do it.
I mean, we have asked them to do it. Before we all were as educated as we are now, we asked them about a year ago or a year and a half to take this up and see if there's some zoning amendment, to come back to us of whether we should do a zoning amendment. I think at the time you were already hearing things from regional planning that you better get something in place. And so we said, well,
That remains.
Take it, we better get something in place.
I plan to go tomorrow and nudge that.
I do have, so one thing that I noticed at the meeting, sometimes I could understand an answer from Dale Arnold, and sometimes it did seem like maybe he was coy, was not really wanting to answer that question. A question that struck me was my question where he was saying, yes, there's some counties that do this and they have a good example. And I said, well, do you want to mention some of those? And he said, no, I only want to mention that to people who are in elected positions. For whatever reason, he's talking about public process. I didn't know, it seemed confusing to me, but I am hopeful that my elected officials will reach out to him for counties that have done this.
Well, we
or
have.
Whoever writes.
We have, and we've had his references.
Did he send just one reference? I looked at the email.
Yeah, maybe.
He sent us at least one.
Yeah.
Well, he would be available. We can keep asking.
Yeah. He also emphasized it's the start of a conversation with him, and he plans to stick with us.
I do want to say that, or I want you to confirm, is that the meeting YouTube up?
Yes.
So that
It's on the community access.
And it's also
Except for, I didn't communicate well enough. I'll actually post it on the website with a big title on it.
Okay.
It was posted on community access as Miami Township, November 13th.
Okay.
It doesn't say solar.
It doesn't say solar, so.
Okay. So you did get a reference back. Have you been able to look at that and see if you thought it was good material, or?
I haven't.
No.
He didn't send us the material, did he?
No.
He just gave us the name of somebody who's done it for us to contact them.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And we also have like I said before, the Greene County Regional Planning's template of their attempt to do it.
Yes.
Now, what's the status of the Yellow Springs Development Corporation grants on community solar?
They didn't get the second round.
Oh.
So they have 100,000, and I believe they're doing a project within the village buildings. And
So they applied for the second grant and didn't get it.
yeah. Frederick has another comment.
Yes.
Number one, community solar has been on the East Coast for a long time. It's very new in Ohio, or it's not here even, but it's not like it doesn't exist. It exists, but not in Ohio. And so there are a number of states that have already dealt with this, and townships and counties and things that have written a lot of stuff. It's not Ohio, though. It's all new to Ohio. Second thing is, maybe it's 18 months away, maybe it's 2 years away, but what I took away from Mr. Arnold in part was, whenever it happens, within 2 months, you'll have somebody at your door saying, well, what are your rules? I want to do this. And any zoning commission, I think, would want to take their time to develop something. So you start now and have it there in place at that moment. And the third thing would be that the Greene County has already made a proposal, said, well, we should have some regulations about this. They know that community solar isn't in place, but they said, here's a whole bunch of things you could consider to have in your, it's not entirely inventing the wheel for
We're
brand
not
new.
starting from scratch.
Yeah, it's not, it doesn't have to be. The other thought I had was that the way they talked about conferring the authority to the Board of Zoning Appeals gave me the impression he was saying there are going to be disputes, concerns, and so forth, and the Board of Zoning Appeals will act as your judge. But they have to have the laws of the land, of the township, before them. They don't have to make those laws, just like you have a judicial section, administrative section, and the Congress. Congress makes the law. So you are the Congress, and you might have a subcommittee that you call zoning that proposes your rules. And then you have somebody who judges whether that project meets or could be in variance, and that's the judges. Well, that's Board of Zoning Appeals, the way I thought he was presenting it. And also, the other thing I want to say, yeah, he's not giving us all the little gritty details about what his personal opinion is. Is he in favor of this or that or hydrogen production or whatever? My own impression is he wants to remain a source of information. If he comes out and says, I don't ever want to see a solar panel on any piece of square foot of the land I own, or if he says, I want hydrogen production, biomass, and I want solar panels and a nuclear plant on my property, he immediately becomes less of a neutral source for all of us wanting to have a discussion.
Plus,
So I think
he is
it's
an
important for
employee
him.
of,
I'm sorry.
he is an employee of the Farm Bureau, and
Then they
he
would
is
have their
not
own points
to
of
take a
view.
position.
Yeah. But as he said, I think in the meeting, he has people on both sides of the fence in the clientele that he talks with, and he tries to maintain an area of expertise without being labeled as, oh, well, you're part of the solar companies. Oh, well, you're part of the against solar companies. He's not. I mean, that's part of the reason I think he doesn't want to answer specific questions. He'd rather say, well, the rules are likely to include this. You need your rules and so forth, rather than saying, I think you should have this specific rule. I'm just giving one person's opinion, but I was there too.
I think I would look for a community solar plan that's from one, I think I would look for an example community solar plan from, there are 24 states that have already passed community solar, have legislation in place. And instead of looking at an Ohio plan that would clearly have been written prior to community solar being on the table, because when 97 had passed, I'd go to some of the states. Some states are very like that, New York, Florida, Massachusetts, and some of them that already have it in place. Hell, that's the issues are different with community solar.
It's a similar type of community where there isn't a lot of development around it, and it's kind of like a residential, agricultural.
Well, it has to be someplace where there's room for it,
Yeah.
so it has to be places, the ground underfoot might be different in some of those places, but there's got to be void space of some sort, or you wouldn't be putting it in the middle of
And so I think I see clearly now, if this goes through, the Board of Zoning Appeals doesn't have to write it, they just have to receive it. However, there are I think we have talent on our Board of Zoning Appeals that could be valuable. We have interest and we have some writers and researchers on that board, so they're certainly welcome to join the
We'll
process.
see what happens tomorrow night, what the reaction is. Ed-
Okay.
Ed
I
is
wrote
on
to
the
Brian
commission.
to see if he had anything he wanted to say, but I haven't heard back, so. Since I said, nobody asked me to contact you, but I just contacted you because I happen to be here and seemed like people thought you might be here. Is there anything you'd like me to, share regarding the presentation? And he hadn't really had time to write back, but anyway, we'll walk into the meeting tomorrow knowing that we listed him tonight.
Okay.
Well, to be continued.
That's true.
Any other topics?
I have none.
No.
Shall we adjourn the meeting?
Yes, we shall.
10 after 6.